Welcome to Tech Brothers. In this video, we're going to learn how to set up peer-to-peer transactional replication in SQL Server 2012 and higher. In this demo, we'll be talking about number 1, best practices, number 2, configuration of distributor on all nodes. The reason I'm putting the word nodes here in peer-to-peer replication, all the SQL Server instances or any other instance that you add in peer-to-peer replication, they are also known as nodes. Number 3, configuration of publisher. Number 4, once our peer-to-peer replication is set up, we'll be looking at the live transaction and we'll do some transaction on our publisher and we'll watch it flow and see if it gets distributed to all our peers that we have added in peer-to-peer replication. Number 5, that's very important right here. There are a lot of limitations of peer-to-peer replication. Some of the limitations I'll be covering in this demo and some of the limitations that I won't be covering in this demo. So please consult on MS website to know all the limitations of peer-to-peer replication. So let's go ahead and talk about the best practices. Number 1, you need to identify all the SQL Server instances or any other instance that you wanted to add to peer-to-peer replication. And number 2, you need to identify the databases that you wanted to replicate among all the peers that's been added in that you're basically planning to add in peer-to-peer replication. Keep in mind, this is requirement of peer-to-peer replication and it will save you a lot of headache if you do what exactly is supposed to be done. Number 1, that you need to sync all the databases, schema as well as the data. So the best way to sync all the databases on all the peers is that take the backup and restore that backup, and keep in mind that you shouldn't make any changes prior to setting up replication. If you do, you do have an option during the setting up of a peer-to-peer replication that if you have known any changes that was made in those databases, and you need to take the backup and supply that backup file so that during the setup the peer-to-peer setup can go ahead and restore that backup for you on all the peers, because this is very important. If you don't do that, let's say that you have made some data changes and you set up the replication after that, and if there is a data that exists on one instance and doesn't exist on other instance, and you try to modify that and it try to replicate among all the peers that's in peer-to-peer replication, you are going to run into conflicts. So keep in mind that whenever you set up your peer-to-peer replication, please sync all the data as well as the database schema. Right here, the D, acquiring replication accounts. If you have set up the transactional replication before, you know that we do need log reader and distributed agent security setup. So for production databases, I would always recommend that have an account, separate replication account, because this account needs to have permission on certain folders, replication related folders, read and write, and also log into the SQL Server and certain privileges. So keep in mind that use an account. The best way to do this is that use an account that is sysadmin on all the peers, and also if that account is added in that particular replicated folders, read and write permission. So make sure that you read also from the MS website the account requirement as far as replication goes. So this is for standard replication. This is not really just peer-to-peer replication, but this is standard replication. In my previous videos, I have explained I have spent good amount of time explaining why we need a separate account, especially for production. But if you're learning, you can use a SQL Server agent as long as that agent have a login on all the peers and have proper permissions. And let me see if I have missed anything else before we go to set up our basically peer-to-peer replication and start our demo. One thing I wanted to make sure that one of the best practice is also that you should make every instance that is taking part in peer-to-peer replication a distributor, its own distributor. You have an option to have one distributor that will distribute your transactions to all the peers that are in peer-to-peer replication, but that would be a single point of failure. If that distributor goes down, your whole replication goes down, and you wouldn't have a facility of maintenance of any peer that you wanted to maintain, because if every peer has its own distributed agent or distributor database, or runs its own distribution, then you can basically take that off, maintain that particular instance, and then add it back to the peer-to-peer replication. So this is very important, and it's a best practice as well. So let's go ahead and go through our demo now. Here is these are my 3 SQL Server instances, also known as 3 nodes that I have identified. So first thing, as I was talking about the best practices, SQL Mirror. This is my SQL Server 2014. Keep in mind that one other limitation of any replication, basically not just a peer-to-peer replication, that you can't go from lower version to higher version. If you wanted to set up, you need to go from higher version to lower version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make SQL Mirror as our publisher, and other are going to be our other peers in our peer-to-peer replication. Once the replication is set up, then everything is going to flow all right. But during the setup, you cannot go from lower to higher version. You can come from higher version to lower version. So I just wanted to make sure that you understand that. I do have, this is SQL Server 2014, this is SQL Server 2012, these 2 instances. So let's go ahead, and first thing, we need to set up every instance its own distributor. So configure distribution, click next, and these are the folders that I was talking about, that when you give when you select your user, that user particularly need to have permission to basically read and write of these folders. Even though the snapshot is not basically there in peer-to-peer replication, you cannot initialize your replication using snapshot. That is again another limitation of peer-to-peer replication. So just to be on the safe side, make sure that you use an account that has enough access on your all boxes. So let's go ahead and click next. Yes, distribution database, you have a choice to change the name, but I'm gonna keep it same. Click next and click next, finish, and this will basically create a distribution database on this particular SQL Server instance, which is SQL Mirror in my case. And we're going to go ahead and repeat this action on all these 3 SQL nodes that I'm going to go ahead and add in peer-to-peer replication. So let's go ahead and configure the distribution on this as well. I'm going to go ahead and start on this one as well. Alright, our first task is completed. We have configured the distributor on all the instances that we wanted to add in peer-to-peer replication. So let's go ahead and create a publication. Here is our SQL Server that we're going to use to publish. Here's the database. This is the database I have identified. I wanted to distribute this database, sales orders underscore test, among all the other SQL Server instances right here that is taking part in SQL Server peer-to-peer replication. Keep in mind that I have already gone ahead and taken the backup and restored on SQL Prod and SQL UAT to sync my database, that what we talked about, and that is very important. So I'm going to go ahead and go in replication and configure publication, new publication, click next and select your database. In my case it's sales orders underscore test. Next, and I'm going to go ahead and select peer-to-peer publication. If you're doing on SQL Server 2008 or 2005, basically you will select transactional publication and then you can configure the peer-to-peer from the transactional replication. But in SQL Server 2012, 2014, it is right here, peer-to-peer publication. What it does is basically enable the transactional publication to be a peer-to-peer publication. So let's go ahead and click next. And here are the tables that are the candidate to be published. Table 1, table 3. This is just for the demo purposes. And here's the security I was talking about. I do have an account that has all proper permission. So TechBrothers /cluster-admin. Give the password. Click OK. Let me go ahead and basically go and check the security one more time. I thought maybe I have typed incorrect password. Click OK. Next, create publication. That's okay. And put up here your publication name. In my case, I'm going to go P2P peer-to-peer underscore demo. Finish, and it is going to create a publication for us. What we're going to do next is take this publication and distribute among all our peers, which in my case is SQL Prod, SQL UAT. Let's close this. Right click and click on configure peer-to-peer topology. Click next. And this is the publication and this is the database that we wanted to publish, and this is the publication that we just created. So select that, click next, and as you can see that this publisher is already added in the topology. If you look at it, it says TBS client, TechBrothers client /SQL mirror. And one thing that I do want you to take a note up here, the peer originator ID right here, it's 100. Any other peer that you add, the two peers in peer-to-peer replication cannot have the same ID. So keep in mind this is 100. So I'm going to go ahead and right click in the vacant area right here, the gray area, and click on add new peer node. And right here is my node, SQL TechBrothers SQL cluster /SQL prod is my node. I'm going to go ahead and connect with that and select the database that you wanted to basically this publication to connect to, and connect with that particular database for your replication. So in my case is sales order test. Keep in mind that I mentioned that I have restored this database to all the peers that I wanted to add in this peer-to-peer replication. So in my case I do have 100 already peer originator ID, which is our publisher ID. So we're gonna go ahead and click on connect all display. This is going to be a push subscription. Everything will be pushed from publisher to all the peers. So let's go ahead and click OK and add another node. In this case it's going to be SQL UAT. Connect and select the database. Again, it's a sales orders underscore test, and the ID is going to be in my case 102. So I'm going to go ahead and click connect to all displayed nodes. Click OK. Now let's make it a little bigger, and you will see this basically these arrows shows the data flow. So the data flow is going to be among all the peers. But if you notice right here, there is a green sign right here, which means that this is the publisher. This is very important. Keep in mind, guys, that if you are configuring peer-to-peer topology, I would recommend that any insert, update, delete, anything, especially the schema changes, should basically start from the publisher. It will make your life easier. Otherwise, you might run into a lot of conflict issues. There is another thing that is conflict detection right here. If you notice, if I move my mouse, basically it's gonna disappear, but I'm gonna leave it right there. And from the bottom up is the second line. It says peer originator ID 100, and then next to that, conflict detection is enabled. That means that if let's say in a table, one person is deleting table from here on this day, on this particular instance, and other person is trying to update that, that is going to create a conflict. So we don't want conflict. Even the conflict detection is enabled. All it's going to do is, if conflict is detected, it's going to let you know, it's going to generate an alert. And you do have an option that if you wanted to continue with the replication after the conflict was detected, sometimes it's not a good idea, especially in production, because that shouldn't happen. All the schema changes should originate from your publisher. Keep in mind the other thing also, that the schema changes by default is enabled on your publisher, so any schema change that you make will be replicated to all the peers. So let's go ahead and click next, and here's the security. You can click, and in my case I'm gonna go ahead and give the security right here. Click OK. If you're using just one account, you can click right here after giving account information on the first one. Click on use the first peer security setting for all other peers. So go ahead and click that, and you don't have to put the same information on the second one. So this was log reader agent security. Next we're gonna go ahead and do the distributor. Since every one of them is a separate distributor, so we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna go and configure the security for all the distribution. So 1, 2, 3. So let's go ahead and click next. As you can see right here, the subscriber right here, SQL Mirror, SQL Prod, SQL UAT, all have its own distribution. So we're gonna go ahead and click on security and configure that. Since I'm using just one account, I will be clicking that option that use the same security. So if I click on use first peer security, it's gonna take all of that. Click next, and right here the options that I was talking about, I have created the peer database manually, or I restored the backup of original publication database, which has not been changed since the backup was taken. If it is changed, then you believe me, you will run into a lot of issues. If it has changed, you need to click on this option and provide the backup. You need to take the backup again and provide this option, and take the recent backup and provide that file right here. In my case, I've made sure there are no changes after I took the backup and restored it. So I'm gonna select that, click next, click finish, and this is going to configure our peer-to-peer replication. This is going to take about a couple minutes in my case. Alright, everything is successful. We can go ahead and close this. And as you can see that there are 2 subscriptions created for this publication right here. So let's go ahead and make some changes, create a transaction in our database that we just published. This is our database. So let me go ahead and look at if there is any data in table 1. Right now there is a Kevin Scott right here, so I'm going to go ahead and basically add another entry up here. George Bailey, and this is his phone number. Alright, let's go ahead and select. So we got the George Bailey right here. Kevin Scott was there. Keep in mind I kept it intentionally because Kevin Scott wasn't in any of the databases that are on other peers right here. It was on publisher, but it wasn't sync. The reason I kept it this way, that if I try to delete Kevin Scott from here, it's going to go ahead and replicate this delete to all other peers, and when it doesn't find Kevin Scott in the database on other peers, it's going to give you a conflict. And I was gonna reproduce that error, but this video is getting long. But keep in mind that you want to make sure that all the data and the schema is same on all the peers that you wanted to add in replication, peer-to-peer replication. So let's go ahead and see that if this addition that George Bailey is in other other instance. This is the table, so we're gonna go ahead and select, and as you can see George Bailey is right here on cluster. So let's go ahead and take a look on UAT. Alright, as you can see that the transaction has flown from our publisher to all our right here, the other peers right here. So basically in peer-to-peer that you can make insert updates on any of the peered nodes right here, and it should sync the data among all the peers that's added in peer-to-peer replication. But again, keep in mind that if let me go back and show you again that if you look at my table 1 right here, right here I have 2 records and every other table has 1 record. Let's say that I'm gonna go ahead and delete this Kevin Scott. What it's going to do is try to delete this particular record from the table 1 on all the other peers, and it's going to give us an error and a conflict that this record doesn't exist. So that's why it is important really that you originate a lot of stuff from your publisher, even though the peer-to-peer replication the main purpose of that is that it will keep sync, but at least you need to make sure that update insert doesn't happen on 2 sides. It happen only on at least 1 side, and that data should exist on all the nodes, otherwise your replication is going to fail. So this is it. This is how you basically set up your transactional replication, peer-to-peer transactional replication in SQL Server 2012 and higher, and I hope this demo helps.